On Maple Street, Greta Marwell was more than just a neighbor. She was a cherished old woman. Her annual tradition of sending handwritten letters to everyone on her floor had become a highlight of the year. Each letter was unique, with Greta including personal messages that reflected shared moments or offered encouragement. But when new neighbors moved in next door, the once cheerful ritual began to change. Tensions grew as the couple's inconsiderate behavior disrupted the peaceful atmosphere. But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. The new neighbors were a nightmare. Loud music at all hours and trash left in the halls became the norm. Attempts to address their behavior only led to conflict. The situation took a toll on Greta, whose vibrant spirit began to fade. Her neighbors noticed, but no one knew how to help until Danny received her latest letter. When Danny opened Greta's letter, his heart sank. It wasn't a cheerful holiday note, but a veiled cry for help. "My dear neighbors," she wrote, "this year has been full of challenges, and I find myself needing your support." Her words hinted at fear and distress caused by her new neighbors, leaving Danny determined to take action. Realizing the urgency, Danny ran out to check on Greta, but she was already gone. Determined to make things right, Danny knew he'd have to face not only the troublesome neighbors, but also the building management to protect Greta's legacy and her home. Danny DuPont wasn't living the glamorous life he'd envisioned when he moved to the city at 18. He left his family home with dreams of stardom, but 5 years later, he was still waiting tables and performing in local theaters. Despite the setbacks, he clung to his passion for acting and made a humble apartment on Maple Street his home. Danny's life was a delicate balance of hard work and hope. By day, he waited tables. By night, he pursued acting. His apartment, small and far from luxurious, was a testament to his determination. Though modest, it held the dreams of a young man unwilling to give up. Over time, the apartment became more than just a place to live. It became Danny's sanctuary. Much of that was thanks to Greta. It witnessed his growth from a wide-eyed teen to a determined young man. His first Christmas there, once lonely, turned into a cherished memory thanks to her kindness. That Christmas, a knock on Danny's door introduced him to Greta. Her warmth and invitation to dinner transformed what would have been a lonely night. As he enjoyed her homemade roast chicken, Danny learned the value of community and compassion, sparking a friendship that would shape his years on Maple Street. From that night on, Danny and Greta developed a special bond. They looked out for each other, offering kindness and support in their daily struggles. It wasn't long before Danny landed a role that would finally set him on the path to achieving his dreams. But with Greta always there for him, he knew that it wouldn't change him. It was a day like any other when Danny was woken up by the sound of a truck's hydraulics squeaking. He looked out of his window and saw a moving truck. New neighbors, he thought to himself, but he had no idea how bad it was going to be. Fast forward past the nosy move-in, and he thought that he would welcome them into the building, just as Greta had done for him. He was surprised to see that they had moved into the apartment next to Greta, the kind old lady. Danny stood in front of the door, his heart pounding with nervousness. He had just moved into the building and decided to pay a visit to his neighbor to welcome him and introduce himself. He knocked on the door, but before he could even say hello, a burly man opened the door. The man had a glass of whiskey in one hand and a cigarette in the other. He looked at Danny with a scowl on his face and asked, "What do you want?" Danny was taken aback by the unexpected rudeness, but he tried to maintain his composure. Danny politely said, "I just wanted to welcome you to the building." The man interrupted him with a dismissive tone and said, "I don't need a welcome from a stranger." Danny felt a pang of disappointment, but he still held out the small gift basket he had brought as a peace offering. Danny couldn't believe it. He had hoped to make a good first impression on his neighbor, but instead, he was met with coldness and indifference. Little did he know, this encounter was just the beginning of a series of unpleasant interactions that would make his life in the building a living nightmare, not only for him but also for the old lady living down the hall. In the following weeks, Danny found himself struggling to adapt to the noisy and disruptive behavior of his new neighbors. The couple living next door, a brawny man and his girlfriend, would often engage in loud arguments throughout the day and would blast loud music late into the night. Danny found this behavior incredibly irritating. Then he realized that it must be even more difficult for Greta, who lived right next to them. Greta was over 50 years older than Danny, and the constant noise from the neighbors must have been quite distressing for her. After a lot of consideration, Danny decided to go over to Greta's to see how she was doing. Little did he know he was about to hear something heartbreaking. He knocked on the door, steeling himself for any outcome, but couldn't believe what he heard. Crying. He knew that Greta was a tough old bird. It was completely out of character. What could have caused her to cry? After a second, she opened the door, but her composure was fully regained. "Hello, Danny." "How are you?" she asked in a delightful tone, her resilience shining through despite the evident earlier distress. Danny smiled at the warmth in her tone, but he came there to make sure that she was okay. Greta led him to the sitting area, offering tea, which Danny accepted. He decided to address the elephant in the room. "Greta, talk to me about the neighbors. It must be awful to live next to." Danny broached the subject tentatively, his concern evident in his voice. Greta sighed, a shadow crossing her face as she set down her teacup. "Oh, Danny," she began, her voice wavering for a moment before she collected herself. "I've always believed in the good of people, but these new neighbors are truly testing my limits," she said with a sigh. She went on to explain that the issues extended far beyond loud music and garbage in the hall. The couple had begun to target her specifically with petty harassment that escalated over time. They knocked on her door at odd hours, only to disappear before she could answer, and left intimidating notes under her door. They wanted her property badly for some reason. Greta, despite her strong will and independence, felt trapped in a situation she could neither control nor escape from. Danny couldn't believe the extent of the problem. As Greta described everything, Danny grew angrier. "I've tried talking to them, I've tried ignoring them, but nothing works," she said, revealing a rare vulnerability. He remembered how Greta had welcomed him when he was new, how she had become like family. Now she needed him, but she sounded defeated. "Maybe it's time I moved somewhere quieter," she said quietly. "No, Greta," Danny replied firmly. "You shouldn't have to leave your home because of them. Let me help." As he left her apartment, his mind raced with frustration over the injustice she was facing. Weeks passed. Winter arrived, covering the neighborhood in a blanket of snow. The holiday season drew closer, and with it came traditions. Danny hoped Greta would continue her custom of delivering handwritten holiday notes to neighbors. It was a beloved ritual on their floor, and he believed she wouldn't let that couple destroy it. He was only half right. As Christmas Eve approached, Danny waited for the familiar sound of footsteps outside his door. When they came, he smiled, certain it was Greta. As usual, he waited before checking, knowing she didn't like being caught. Eventually, he opened his door and found a note, but something felt off. Sitting on his sofa, Danny unfolded the paper, expecting a warm message. The first lines were typical greetings, but the tone soon shifted. "Dear Danny, thank you for your years of friendship. You've become something of a grandson to me." The note continued, "The harassment has become too much. They want to buy my apartment and knock down the wall. I want to fight, but I'm too old. This is goodbye." Danny sat in shock. Greta was giving up. He rushed into the hallway, hoping to catch her, but she was gone. Her door remained closed. Frustration and fury boiled within him. He couldn't let them win. He stormed down the hall to the neighbor's door and knocked hard. The man opened it, already looking irritated. Danny confronted him, unable to contain his anger. The man's expression twisted in rage. Then he stepped forward, hand resting on a holster. Danny backed away quickly, his heart pounding, but the man followed. Before things escalated further, another neighbor appeared in the hallway. It seemed the veteran wasn't keen on catching any charges, so he retreated into his apartment, slamming the door behind him. As for Danny, he returned to his place determined to act. He needed a real plan. Danny believed that if their neighbors knew what was happening, they'd rally behind Greta. She had always been a warm presence in the building. Pulling out his journal filled with names and apartment numbers, Danny went door to door. Over the course of an hour, he spoke with nearly everyone, except the troublemakers. Mr. Black, who lived on the other side of the couple, revealed he too had been pressured to sell but refused. Everyone expressed the same frustration and sympathy for Greta. With the support of the floor, Danny proposed a plan. They would submit a formal complaint to building management and make sure Greta never felt isolated again. Even the more reclusive neighbors were ready to help. Danny collected signatures and marched to management with the complaint, but it backfired. They dismissed him. Uninterested in tenant problems, defeated but not discouraged, Danny knew they'd have to solve it themselves. He gathered the neighbors again and outlined a new strategy, one that would turn the tables. Over the next few days, each neighbor played a part in disrupting the couple's peace. Mr. Black started blasting jazz music at odd hours, knowing the metal-loving couple would be irritated. When they complained, he ignored them, just as they had ignored everyone else. Mrs. Crawford followed with her own plan. She left a garbage bag filled with empty sardine cans outside their door. The smell attracted stray cats, creating a mess the couple had to walk through every day. Finally, Danny launched his part of the plan. He tampered with their routine, parking in their spot, sealing their mailbox with glue, and unscrewing the hallway light bulb by their door. He even got them fined for noise pollution by reporting them. A week passed, and though the couple became increasingly frustrated, they didn't crack until they finally did. They halted renovations and gave notice. The floor had won. They couldn't handle being on the receiving end of the chaos they once caused. Peace returned to the building. Hallways were quiet again, but for Danny, something was still missing. Greta. Determined to find her, he searched until he spotted a familiar red headscarf. His heart sank. Greta was living in a homeless shelter, still looking for a new place. Danny stepped in, negotiating with management to restore her apartment. By the time the next holiday season arrived, Greta resumed her tradition of handwritten festive notes. This time, her message was filled with gratitude. She called their support her Christmas miracle. The neighbors grew closer, hosting gatherings and building a true support network. Greta once again became the heart of the floor, her kindness and wisdom radiating through the building. Danny, looking back, realized just how powerful a united community could be, and how one person standing up could inspire many to do the same.